Welcome to the Lone Star Barnburner Hockey Podcast Offseason Edition. K-Fitz joins. We're going to talk about all things Dallas Stars. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show.
Dallas Stars! 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 Dallas Stars!
Hello, are we there?
I'm here. Are you there?
I'm here.
Aren't
Apparently
the
the Oilers
Stars?
aren't now.
What's that?
I said apparently the Oilers aren't now.
Oh, shots fired.
You really
Shots.
can't shoot a lot of shots at them. They actually made it an interesting series.
Oh, wow, you took that right back to being serious. Dang, look at you.
Well, I mean, I don't want to give the Oilers too much of a hard time. I mean, I know right now, as being somebody who's been right at the cusp of having a team win a championship and lose it just by the skin of your teeth, yeah, devastating it is. So, uh, yeah.
Sucks to suck. I'll give them the yeah. I'll give them the crap. I don't mind.
Hey, they could have just given up after going down 3-0, and they made it a series. They came back, and I'm not sure if that's something to say against Florida, or if that's just the Oilers coaching staff getting their minds where they need to be to come back in that series. But anyway,
Man, it was some series. You're right. Edmonton looked like they were gonna get swept, you know,
oh yeah,
and in a
oh
bad
they
way.
look. I'll be honest with you. After Game 3, and you looked at that bench area, they were completely defeated. I'm not sure what lit the fire in them to come back in Game 4, but whatever lit the fire in them in Game 4 carried them through Game 5 and 6, and unfortunately they just ran out of steam. But congratulations to Florida finally getting over the hump and winning the Stanley Cup. They made it to the finals 2 years in a row, so you can't take anything away from number one, that organization, and number two, the tenacity of that team. Especially if you look back over the last 2 seasons of who they've taken out to get to this point. I mean, last season in the first round, nobody gave them a chance against, Boston. I mean, come on, Boston was destroying everybody last season, the season before, and they took them out handily in the first round, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, took out the number 2 or 3 seed shortly after that, and they were one of the bottom seeds, if I'm not mistaken. They were the bottom seed, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not gonna be the guy that goes, "Oh, hey, I remember," and they were blah blah blah, because I've slept a lot since then, and I slept pretty good. But
Mm.
I mean, to me, circling back to a point that actually makes sense, seating really doesn't matter. It just shows that you got in.
No, seeding doesn't matter, I'm not taking anything away from home ice. Home ice really doesn't matter.
No, we learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, honest and truly, if you look at a lot of the teams right now that are winning, or that we're winning over the last 5 or 6 seasons. A lot of them are winning more on the road than they are at home, or it's pretty well even, like the Stars.
Man, they yeah, I don't even know about what to say about the Stars, man. They ugh, just ugh. Like
Well,
you see
they
the
petered out. Let's just call it what it is. They petered out.
yeah, you're right.
They had opportunities and they squandered them, and they pretty much let Edmonton dictate to them the series, and we see what happened.
And I mean, but why did they peter out though? Like they have some offensive firepower. We know that. I mean, what was it? They had well, no, they had all four lines that were just ready and willing to score.
Oh
All
yeah, no, 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 no. Dallas had probably the one of the, if not the most talented roster in
they
the
did.
Final Four. Um,
And for once, since God knows how long ago, maybe the early 90s, they had a four-line team.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and I'm not writing the check yet that Pavelski's retiring. I know he's kicked it around. I know he said whatever he said, but until it's the off season, actually until it's the season, I'm not going to write him out. And I'm not saying he's going to be back in Dallas. I'm just saying I'm not going with him retiring yet. Just saying.
I
I think
want
he's
to.
still got some fire there in the furnace, and I think it's easy after losing a series like they lost. It's easy for him to say, maybe this is it. And I do kind of like how his response has been a little bit more open ended. I mean, it's not a definite, yep, this is my last season. I'm it. That's it. He has kind of said, well, I'm going to take some time off and reevaluate things and see. But yeah, more. I mean, he's basically said more than likely this was probably his last season, but he hasn't definitively came out and just said that's it.
Well, let me ask you this. As long as we're talking about people that are prominent in a sport, how many times did Undertaker say he was done?
Oh, how many times did Brett Favre retire? Tom Brady. Tom Brady's still kicking around, coming back now. You know,
You said three
very
plus?
very few times. Very few times does an athlete retire right off the bat. I mean, there are those instances like a Peyton Manning who, when he was done, he was done. That was it. Or a John Elway, when he was done, he was done. That's it. But there are many times, and even in lower profile players where a player has returned. How many times have you been watching a game and it's like, and this person has came back out of retirement to, give it one more go. I mean, I'm trying to think. There's a wide receiver that retired and recently came back
Well, I can't say
in the NFL.
recently came back, but Randy Moss,
Yeah, Randy Moss did it. But no, there was one recently. Ocho Cinco has been kicking around coming back. That's who I'm thinking of.
Terrell Owens did
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, handful
So
of years ago, whatever the case.
right. So I'm not one to buy into the hype of, oh, poor us, Pavelski's done. What are we going to do? Yes, we do need to look into filling that void. And honest and truly, we do need to find somebody that has a little bit more season. Yeah, it's great to have a young person that can fill that position, but you need some of that leadership. So you need somebody on your team like a Pavelski. I love the fact that when Pavelski said, hey, this is probably going to be it for us, and of course he's looking for homes elsewhere now and going to be moving. Everybody went to Wyatt Johnson. What are you going to do? Like he's not making enough money now to get his own place and figure things out on his own. you know, it's
Why?
just funny how
It's funny how. Go ahead.
it's just funny how we still look at Wyatt Johnson, even though he's going now into his third you know season with the NHL. We still look at him as a kid, but he's grown by leaps and bounds. as a man in the league, to be honest with you.
My gosh, has he ever? No signs of slowing down. I mean, I don't want to say he's another Robo because I think Robo did have a little bit of a slip in
Yeah,
production.
Robo kind of he didn't have the typical sophomore slump. He's had more of the third year slump, which it's going to happen. We knew it was eventually going to happen because first of all, unless your name is Gretzky, you're not going to be able to go in season after season and just dominate. Especially the way the league is set up nowadays, and the way that lines change, and the way that defenses play, and honestly, truly, the a lot of the rule changes, affect a lot as far as players being able to maintain. But he still had a good showing this season. It's not like he fell completely off the map. And here's another thing: when you're as successful as a Robo, you're going to garner more attention, and of course, he's garnered a lot of attention. It's difficult to get around that, especially when you're not used to playing with all that attention. So I think this upcoming season, I think it's going to be another breakout season for Robo because he's kind of seeing now what the league's going to throw at him, and he can he's got a full season's worth of tape to watch of himself and how they're playing him and figure out. And I think he will figure out a way to get around that. And I hope that young Johnston is paying attention because, honest and truly, Johnston's name wasn't on anybody else's map other than if you were a Stars fan or if you were a fan of, say, the Minnesota Wild or something like that that plays the Stars and knows who young Wyatt Johnston is. So, you know, there's a lot of folks out there that a lot of teams and whatnot that probably didn't really give him a serious look, but are going to give him a serious look. So he might want to keep what's in gone on with Robo this season in mind for next season.
Dude, I think the more I look at it, man, I think the more the younger team develops, and let's say you don't get Joe Pavelski, I think the more the younger team develops, man, I think the more you need a guy like Maverick Bork, or sorry to say this because he's gone to San Jose now, a Ty Delandria.
Yeah,
You
I was
know,
actually kind of shocked on that one when you sent me that. I was like, "Oh, are you serious?"
I mean,
I kind of get it, but I don't. If that makes any sense.
yeah, it's like again, he played in a team that they could barely squeeze him in, so there was that. You had Smith and Foxa and Steele on that one line, and Delandria would have slotted in there. So of course his time was limited. We get it, but you're kind of living on the edge of what if Steele and Smith don't resign?
Yeah,
And I mean, you did a favor to Delandria by sending him to San Jose in that, now he's going to have NHL playing time. But you also did a disservice to the kid because what if you get an injury?
yeah,
I mean, you can't everything that you think Delandria could have been, they're putting the same stock in Maverick Bork, or Logan Stankoven even. Just because he
yeah.
had one good year doesn't mean he's going to be a prominent NHL guy.
No. In fact, I don't think there's an analyst out there that predicted that Wyatt Johnson would have the season he had this season, coming off the last season.
I mean, no. The most hype I remember about him was the rookie year, and that's when I looked at you and I said, "Hey, watch him."
Yeah, I mean, and he didn't even really get any recognition his rookie year, which is a crying shame. Now, I'm hoping that young Mr. Stankoven can come in this season and turn some heads, being that this will actually be his full rookie season and he will be in the running.
That's wild. I don't. I don't like how NHL seasons work. If that makes any sense.
Oh
As
no,
far
I don't like it either. I think it's crazy how a player can play almost half a season and it still not be considered his rookie season. It's just it's baffling to me, but it is what it is.
yeah, I mean, could that be one of the reasons why they gave up on Ty?
You know, Ty hasn't been lighting the world on fire here lately. I mean, if you look at his numbers and his statistics, and you know, some of that may be because he hadn't been getting the playing time he maybe he should, and there's got to be a reason for that as well. Maybe he's not showing it in practice. I mean, there's a lot that probably went into that decision that we as fans don't know. It's easy for us to armchair quarterback and question every move that the front office makes. And yes, the front office does make some bonehead moves, and I think that they would agree with me on that. That sometimes a move looks great on paper, but not so great in the real world. But it makes me almost wonder because of Ty Delandria's reduction in play time this last season and them letting him go like this and letting him go pretty quick. You know, I mean, it wasn't like, okay, you know, the Stanley Cup playoffs are over, da da da, now let's take a step back. No, I mean, playoffs were still going on and this transaction occurred. And what they got from San Jose was nothing. I mean, you know, I don't remember exactly what all they got, but I think it was like you know, it's a 2025 pick. So, you know, it
Sorry for the
wasn't
noise.
anything. What's that?
Sorry for the noise.
Oh, no. So, I
There we
mean,
go.
it wasn't anything like it's not like a blockbuster deal where the whole NHL's turning their heads going, oh, wow, look at that move. So, yeah, there's got to be something going on there that maybe we as fans aren't aware of.
Here's my problem with it, though. If you go back and look when he was drafted, I mean, I think he was a first round pick, for one. I don't remember what position he was drafted, so you can double check me on this if you so choose, but I think it was mid first round.
Mhm.
Um, the fact that it seemed like it was a reasonable pick, the fact that they got a fourth round for him seems like a little bit of a disservice, like disrespectful even. Now, I'm going to go back and look right now to see it, actually, no, I'm not because this thing isn't working. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
This thing is not working. Um, I'm actually good, by the way. I don't need to cut. So,
Okay, okay.
uh, 2018, Dallas 13th overall. Okay, so 13th overall. That's mid first round, which in NFL, I don't guess that matters as much. I'm sorry, NHL, it doesn't matter as
Oh
much.
no, no, no! You're right. I think in any league, the round that you're drafted has nothing to do. I mean, honest and truly, there have been just as many successful fourth, fifth, sixth round players in drafts across many leagues, be it NHL, NBA, or NFL, or even Major League Baseball. There's been just as many successful fourth, fifth, and sixth round players as there have been first and second round players. The round that you're drafted in all honesty, yeah, there's a lot of hype around it, but I mean, how many first round busts have there been? I mean, I can guarantee you, if we were to take statistics and do a statistical graph, it would be probably skewed more towards first or second round busts versus first or second round, all stars.
Yeah. And, to piggyback off that, dude, how in the world can you say Delandria was a bust if you don't even put him on the ice?
Yeah, I would not necessarily say he's a bust. I would just, like I said, I think there's more to the story. I think there's things that we probably don't know. Maybe he didn't mesh well with the team. Maybe we don't know. We're not there. We're not in those locker rooms. We're not in that office. Maybe it's just a feeling they had. Maybe they just felt like he was giving up the ghost for whatever reason. He lost playing time, and yeah, he wasn't given the time on the ice. But there's got to be a reason why that is. When you're a coach in the NHL, you're not playing to because you like this person over that person. You're a coach because you're there to win. You're being paid to win. So this coaching staff is going to put who they feel is going to win for them on the ice. For some reason, it wasn't Delandria.
Makes you wonder though, who's it gonna be? Because yeah, I mean now you have two open spots in a way.
It really doesn't make you wonder because Delandria is gone, so you don't have to wonder about him. Now you're just going to wonder who's going to fill that slot.
But I mean Maverick Bork. Hmm.
And maybe they are making some room for a Maverick Bork and a Stankoven. They're maybe the stars are trying to get a little younger, but like I said, I hope they don't focus so much on youth. I hope during this off season I really want them to go out, and I mean, I don't know who all the free agents are right now. I haven't taken time to look at any of that. As you know, I've been doing my schooling thing, so I'm so far out of touch with what's going on in any of the leagues, NHL, NFL, or anything like that. I've been trying to pay a little bit of attention of what's going on in the NFL, being that preseason's fixing to start, or their OTAs and things like that are fixing to start kicking off, and I like to keep an eye on not only my Texans, but granted, no, I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, but I do like keeping track because when you are in the states, in that state, and you have that interstate rivalry, I like to come to the table with facts and statistics whenever I'm talking to a Cowboys fan. It's easy to say, "Oh, I don't like the Cowboys because they're the Cowboys," but if you don't have the mindset to back it up, you can't really have an argument with somebody. So I want to always be able to have that argument. So I do pay attention to what's going on with those two teams for sure in the NFL. But as far as NHL goes, yeah, I haven't been paying attention. But if there is a key veteran that we can get our hands on. I hope that the front office, and I don't know what our cap situation or anything like that is. If I'm not mistaken, did they not just raise the cap?
They did buy a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact number though. It's like 88 million.
I remember reading somewhere that the NHL had actually raised the cap, or we're talking about kicking around raising the cap or anything like that. But anyway, last off season, I don't feel like we did a lot. And remember, when we would have our shows or we would discuss, during the off season, maybe they just feel like this is the team. But what kind of bothered me is it seemed like later on in the season they tried to do this band aid fix thing, especially when we kind of hit a little bit of a slump. They started bringing in guys, almost left and right. It was almost weekly. We were bringing in somebody new, and okay, that's great to try and stuff like that, but it can also affect that team chemistry as well. So I hope that they would try to address some of these concerns that maybe they're having that might get us over that hump to at least make it to the final. Uh, yeah, it's great to make it to the playoffs, but in two seasons in a row, we've lost going into the finals. It's we peter out both last season and this season right here. We petered out in the final round to make it to the finals. So you know they need to take a step back and kind of figure out. Um, and I hate to say it, but maybe they need to look a little bit more into our goalie situation and figuring out ways to give Ottinger a little bit more of a break during the regular season so that he's a little fresher and more able to go, especially when you're trying to make a long run in the playoffs.
You know, something I agree with, and yeah, if I had Mr. Nell on this podcast, I would ask him about that because, you know, you have Scott Wedgwood, who is pretty serviceable. He played, I don't know how many games, but it dang sure wasn't 41. But when you had Ben Bishop and Anton Hidobin a couple of years prior, they played 41 and 41, or dang near close to it. And one of those years, if memory serves me correct, and I believe it does, was the one that we went to the Stanley Cup Finals against Tampa Bay. Well, why was that? It's because the goalies were split. You know, we had a defense that was, uh, well, it had John Klingberg on it, and we sent him packing, as everybody knows, and that's been a talk of the town for a little while. People are still mad and all that kind of jargon, but
Hey, isn't that one of them bonehead decisions that the front office makes every once in a while? I was
yeah,
talking about.
that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I mean, do we miss him? Eh. What we're missing is, like you said, something that's going to get us over the hump,
Right,
and that's kind of what I was alluding to as well. Because I want to see if we can start a nice little discussion about it. What's it going to take to get us over the hump? I mean, Jake, we don't know. I mean, he could be a great goalie if he had a little bit more rest. But what about if he had somebody like William Carrier in front of him?
right. Well, here was my issue with Jake Ottinger this season. And remember, we discussed it a lot during the early part of the season. So going into last off season, he had surgery. I don't remember what surgery it was. It was on one of his knees or something of that nature?
I thought it was his back. Yeah, don't get me lying.
Yeah, don't get me. Like I said, I'm so far out of touch on things. I haven't done any kind of research for that nature. But I do know he had surgery.
Yeah,
Now, that was going into the off season last year.
yeah,
Come this season, I think they should have pulled the reins back on Ottinger. Maybe allow Wedgwood to have that starting position for the beginning, at least quarter of the season. You know, let Ottinger have some time to heal. If you remember, Ottinger was off at the beginning, like way off. Like it was like the train had gone off the rails and was heading towards a ravine. I mean, we were losing games that we should not have lost. We were losing the teams we should have never lost to. You know, and a lot of it was mistakes and being out of position. And remember, we discussed it looked like Ottinger was slow, like he wasn't the Ottinger of old. Like now, as the season went on, which backs up my point here, Ottinger got back on the horse and started making some of those saves, and especially in the early part of the playoffs, boy, he was making some saves that were like out of this world. Like, where did that come from? Now, why? How did that happen? Why did that happen? Well, because anybody who's ever had any kind of surgery, be it back surgery, knee surgery, elbow surgery, whatever kind of surgery, you're never going to come in and be that starting person right off the bat. And sometimes you need to pull the rails back, especially when it's somebody who's a goaltender, who you can pull the rails back because you do have a comparable backup in Wedgwood. So I think if they would have, at the beginning of the season, instead of making Ottinger the starter, make Wedgwood the starter, let Wedgwood take the lion's share of the game, give Ottinger, a game here, a game there, let him get back into that game speed, let his back heal a little bit better, let his body condition itself. I think it would have worked out a lot better, and we wouldn't have petered out the way we did. And I think that that's one of the keys right there. If you ask me, one of the things that we need to work on, number one, is you know Andre needs some help. Uh, he's a great goalie, but he is not that goalie that is going to be able to just stop everything that's going on, especially one thing I've noticed is that he's very easy to get flustered when there's a lot going on in front of the net, uh, and he's got to kind of rely on himself. I mean, and they're not able to, clear the zone. So it's shot after shot after shot, and eventually they get in. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, the announcer's sitting there saying, "Oh, and they need to clear the zone. They need to clear the zone." And 5 seconds later, a goal, and it's like nobody's helping me in that area. So we need to focus on number one, how to get that, in those circumstances like that. We need somebody in there who can, clear the zone. I mean, take an icing if you have to. It doesn't. I mean, do something to get it out of there. Slow the pace down a little bit. Give Ottinger a breather. So he's not sitting there getting all these oddball, weird angles shot at him. Um, but give him some chance to rest. Now, I don't know what his conditioning is right now. I don't know if surgery or anything like that. But I believe in the beginning, at least the first quarter of the season, I think it could be 50-50 between him and whoever his backup up, be it a Redwood or if he brought somebody else in and made Ottinger the backup, you know. But yeah, we all love Ottinger, and none of us wants to see him, be put down or be put in a position where maybe he feels like, he's let the team down. But you also don't want to hurt him. You want him to have a long season or a long career. And so, sometimes you have to look at what's best for the team and what's best for the player.
I mean, if you want to go what's best for the player route, if you have Scott Wedgwood signed as a backup and you're sitting him most of the season for whatever reason, why is he even on your team? I mean, if it was me, if I was, and I'm not questioning Mister best GM in the league 2 years in a row outright. I'm just trying to figure this out because you got a team that acts like Jake Ottinger is goalie 1A and Wedgwood should be 1B, but doesn't that mean you should split the season between the two, 41 each?
I would think it would. I would, and I don't know. I don't know if it's pressure because Ottinger sells merchandise. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the front office. I'm not there. Um, I don't know if when they don't play Ottinger, if they, catch flack for it in that area, and maybe they just don't want to do that with the fan base. I'm not sure, but I'll be honest with you. And this is me. When you're looking at an NHL season, it's a long season. I would, as a coach, if I were coaching, I would break it up into quarters. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and then what I would do is in that first quarter, I would split it half and half. The second quarter, I would actually go more Wedgwood and give Wedgwood the lion's share over Ottinger. Third quarter, I would do another 50-50 split between the two. And then your fourth quarter, Ottinger gets, if everything is playing out great, Ottinger gets the lion's share. And then going into the playoffs, he's in, that game mode. He's in that mode of where, where he needs to be. And you've given him enough rest through the season where his body's not breaking down and his mind is not breaking down.
Yeah, that's a solid point because you could be mentally tired and not physically tired, or vice versa, for that matter.
Right. I mean, honestly, truly, think of I put it in terms of like me doing my schooling thing. There have been nights I have done nothing physically at the house. I've come home from work, I've worked my normal day, and I'm perfectly fine. I'm not exhausted, I'm not tired, I'm not anything. And I will sit at my computer and I will do, 2 or 3 hours of schoolwork, be it my accounting or statistics or um, uh, economics, one of those three classes, and I'll work 2 or 3 hours on it. By the time I get done, I am so exhausted. My whole body, not just my mind, my whole body feels it, and I'm just to that point of exhaustion, mental exhaustion. And you can't tell me that, especially a goalie who has to, sit there and take into account everything that's going on the ice. Even when it's down in the opponent's zone, he's got to stay on his game. The goalie probably has the least amount of break or rest time over anybody else. When you're the goalie, you're out there pretty much the whole game unless you get pulled because things happen. You don't leave the ice. You don't get a real sit down. You do get to come over to your bench every once in a while, but it's not like you go over your bench just to sit, relax, and lounge around. You go over there, you refill your water or your Gatorade or whatever juice or whatever they're drinking, discuss strategy with your coach, and that's it. You're on the ice. And then when you're out on the ice and something changes up, you're probably one of the last ones to hear about it, know about it, or anything like that. If there's a lineup change or something like that, you're out there on the ice. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening. Nobody's over there talking to you, telling you, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe every once in a while your captain will get around over to you, be able to, shout some instructions or let you know game plan change or anything like that. You're out there for pretty much the entire game. You don't have a line that you can change. You don't have anything of that nature. And it gets mentally taxing. You're basically quarterbacking, the entire game. So you're playing offensive quarterback, defensive quarterback. You're just doing the whole thing. It would almost be like taking a quarterback in the NFL and making him also play like a Sam or linebacker, the linebacker that runs the defense out there when he's out on the field. You can't tell me that that would not get eventually mentally draining on a player, especially having to deal with that game in and game out.
Let me add this in here too, because you're in the crease of your own slot, your own goalie spot, whatever you want to call it. I don't freaking know your own goalie slot and goalie crease. God, I can't get it right. Goalie crease. There we go. And you're looking at the big screen on the other end of the ice. Not only are you trying to figure out where the puck is, you're watching where your team is. You're watching to see who's on the ice. If maybe you don't know, how about adding this on as well? What about the uncertainty of turnovers? Maybe you have somebody on the ice that commits a lot of turnovers, which, by the way, there were some people on the Stars roster that I saw thrown under the bus because of turnovers quite a bit, even in the playoffs.
Yeah,
So you're Jake Ottinger, you're in your own goal crease, watching everything go down. That person hits the ice, and then you got that added pressure. What if there's a turnover and it's coming straight at you?
yeah, and in those moments of that turnover, it's pretty much you against two. Yeah, possibly you've got you against two or three guys. And if I'm not mistaken, there were a couple of those opportunities in the beginning of the season, and unfortunately, Andre lost a lot of those matchups where it was 2-on-2 coming against him and whatnot. Something that he was actually able to win later on in the season. However, early in the season, he was having issues with.
They did. They even had some issues in the playoffs with the odd man rushes.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a time where I saw some, and even you saw some. And you're like, "What just happened?" And that you can't really solely blame Otter.
no,
You
you
can't
can't.
blame, yeah, exactly, or Wedgwood for that matter. It's on defense, and you know it, that defense is good even back in the goal crease. Ottinger and Wedgwood are great too, but something's missing. If
Well,
you had, go ahead.
It's one thing that we've been discussing in the last couple seasons. They have
Yeah.
not focused on defense.
I mean, if you want to think back to a few years ago, a handful of years ago, Chicago, when they won the Stanley Cup, they didn't have very great defenses. They had a top heavy offense, but we're not built like Chicago.
No, we're not. And you know, and this season we weren't the same team we were the season before, where we were awesome at making comebacks. This season not so much. This season it seemed like, and I don't know why, and I can't explain it. I cannot put my finger on it, but it just seemed like this season this team didn't start coming into its own until late in the second period, or sometimes even into the third period, middle of the third period. And I don't know why. It just seemed like we were on auto control, like cruise control for the first and second period, and then all of a sudden the third period we want to come out there and start hustling and trying to get goals. And let there are many games where we pretty much let our opponents in the first and second period dictate to us how things were going to go. And it just seemed like, and I don't know why, but for whatever reason, there were a couple of games there where we just could not figure out how to get the goal. I mean, we were dominating in shots on goal, but weren't getting many in the net. And I'm not sure if it's because we were trying basic, simple shots against goaltenders that those aren't going to work on, or if it's just nobody's willing to go out there and just be like Wyatt Johnson. I hate to say it, and I know we're kind of on him, and you know because he's an impressive young man. Some of the shots he makes are very impressive, and he's a student of the game. There was one time where one of the in one of the series where we were down, and I remember me, you and I both had done a show, and I was talking about they needed to go after different angles instead of trying to go into the five holes so much against this goaltender. And all of a sudden, what did they do the next game? I think Wyatt Johnson got two goals in that game, and both of them were due to odd angles, and lifting the puck up and getting the puck up off the ice and trying to get it in, as opposed to trying to get that pretty shot.
Yeah, speaking of which, one of those very goals that you just mentioned was up by one of the goaltender's ears.
Yes,
And I think it was directly parallel to the goal line, the big red line that runs across the end of the zone.
yeah, because in fact, I think they were even looking at that one to make sure it was a legal shot, which it was.
I mean, he was standing on the ice and beside the goal. Heck yeah, it was legal. I mean, the only way it's not going to be legal is if he's in the blue paint, which is a topic for debate in itself.
Yeah,
The blue paint was the term that I was looking for when I stumbled across it earlier, or stumbled around it. But
yeah, we learned about that in one of our series too. We had that goal that was called back. That was a goal. Sorry, it was a goal. There was no goaltender interference. If the goaltender was interfered, it was due to his own, action. I can't
that's
believe they
still
said because of
pointless.
the but because the who was that? Was it Sam Steele? I think it was Steele. They said that his butt went over the blue paint or something of that nature.
He's on the mic'd up thing. He goes, "No, I can't even repeat that. Never mind." He said ASS over the line.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
was
mean, that's the most ridiculous. And what's bad is, here's what's bad about that call is when you have even when even after that. I mean, I remember watching sports centers and stuff like that because I get them on my YouTube and whatnot. And everybody almost unanimously was like, no, there's no way that's goal. I think only one person out of all the shows that I watched was like, no, it is. He shouldn't be in that area. And everybody's like, well, at what point do you as a player? I mean, if he stopped before he even touched, he did not even cross over the crease into any. He didn't even cross over the red line, even into the blue paint. At what point do we say, okay, this is your space, that's the goaltender space? And especially when the contact that did happen was not initiated by the player, but by the goaltender. I don't
Wasn't that
understand how that is goaltender interference.
wasn't that a Marchment goal?
I think it was, and I think, like I said, I believe they said that I want to say it was Steele. I don't know why Steele is sticking out there, but and they said that it was goaltender interference because of Steele's butt being over the blue.
And it was because the goalie was moved into him too.
Well,
And
yeah, but it was the goalie moved into.
I lost you, dude.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. So when you look at that play, number one, I want to say it was Steele. I have to go back and watch it. I can't. Don't get me quoted, and I'm sorry if anybody listens to this. Don't give me a hard time over it. I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say Sam Steele. Steele stopped way before he even got into the crease or near the crease. The opponent player pushed him at the same time their goalie, which caused this. So, at what point, when you're looking at everything, do you say, okay, that wasn't the player's? The player, had no intention of interfering with the goaltender. Now, and what kills me is there are some flagrant goaltender interference that are not called.
uh okay, here's the thing too. If you're not gonna call the same call the same way more than once, I think is the right way to say it.
Right.
You don't need to be calling it because not only does it affect the way that the game is played, not only does it probably diminish confidence, and if it does, by the way, you probably don't need to be on the ice, but it gives the fans. I can't even count on my fingers and toes how many times I saw fans say that this and that is rigged.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not because everybody's promoting sports betting now, blah blah. But if you have a goalie moving on his own and a guy somehow bumps into him because the goalie moved to him and into him, that's on the goalie.
Yeah. 100%. That entire whole uh, that entire whole process was all due to the goalie's movement, and none of it was due to our players' actual. You know, it's not like our player turned around, hooked him with his stick or something like that. Had his back to him. Just I don't know.
And let's take it a step further because as a former athlete, you've probably seen this on whatever field you played on. What about a player's reputation?
Yeah,
Now, um, I'll use Mason Marchment. He has a reputation for being rowdy, shall we say? I'm trying not to walk the line of being disrespectful because I actually love the guy, but he's got a reputation to him. And when you see the ice and when there's even a minor infraction and he's on the ice, Guess who they're gonna call?
Yeah.
It should not be that way. If you're gonna call somebody, you need to call everybody. And I'll take it a step further. I believe, if memory serves me correct, on more than one occasion, I've seen the amazing hockey god on skates, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. They both have this reputation for being uh, the team's top players. And for McDavid, they call him McJesus because everybody worships him. Reputation played into the way those games were called because it's like Tom Brady, for example. Tom Brady, everybody said was a god, and they always looked for reasons to hate him. Deflated this, whatever. See, if the games weren't if the games were called right down the middle as they should be, none of those reputations would be a thing. If you're gonna see embellishment, you need to call embellishment. Rupe Hintz got embellishment a time or two.
Mm-hmm.
He's not known for embellishment. Why was that? Well, the Stars fan in me and the Edmonton hater in me would say, well, it was because it was against McDavid and the Oilers. Where would I get that perception? Especially when I don't see Edmonton play every day. How am I going to get that feeling from them? It's because the way things go on the ice.
Yeah.
Call it down the middle or not at all. I could go off on a tangent on that on its own. Like, what do you think as a former athlete yourself? Have you seen things happen based on somebody's reputation?
I've seen things happen not only based on a person's reputation, but on a team's reputation. I mean, just look at in the state of Texas. You've got it's not the same as when I played, but when we played Odessa Permian, I can remember almost the entire week our coaches telling us these are dirty players. You know, they're a very dirty team. They're not afraid of personal fouls and things like that. And in fact, they've got sacrificial players. And we watched tape, and they had that reputation of having, if you had a star player on your team, running back or wide receiver or something, they would have a sacrificial player that would go out there and would try to do whatever they needed to do, and that was their reputation. Now, maybe it was something we could just see on film, or maybe I mean, do we know for 100% fact that was true? No, but when we watch film and when we would see statistics and we would look at things of that nature, it sure appeared that way. So, of course, when we were going into that game, we had that mindset. Now, I can remember very well when we played against them. I didn't see them pulling any cheap shots or anything of that nature. And they seemed pretty respectful to me, the players that we played against. However, because of maybe teams or coaching staffs in the past, or just because a bad chain of events have happened over a series of games where certain players were just being a little rougher than others, so they would get personal fouls called against them. It's hard to say, but yeah, I mean, I've witnessed referees will call something that probably wasn't very flagrant, but because the player had that reputation, and not only referees calling stuff like that, opposing coaches and staffs and things like that saying this player is a dirty player. However, you know, when I look at the hits and things like that, it's not as bad as what they're saying it is, but because of the reputation, yeah. So, I mean, does that play into Marchman? Yeah, it certainly could be. You know, it's almost like the goon player. When you've got the player that that's who you send out there. their whole job is to do nothing but wreak havoc. And if they get fined, if they get whatever, hey, the team's at least we're willing, we'll take it as long as it's not flagrantly bad where it's hurting anybody. That's pretty much what the whole thing of the having that goon on the team. That's his job.
Speaking of which, the Stars need a goon in a bad way.
You know what? Yeah, I think we do. I think we need that. And unfortunately, I thought we had that in uh, what's his name that we lost last season too. The Lightning. The
Oh, Glendening.
yeah. I thought we had that, and unfortunately,
See that goes back to another point that I made, man. You're gonna have to hit somebody if you want to progress up the ice.
yeah.
I mean, I think that pretty well proves it. Jamie can't do it himself, and I've seen Foxa do it too. Don't get me wrong, but you're gonna have to have more than two players.
I don't want to take anything away from Jamie Benn's past seasons, but in all honesty, just watching this season, this was the most captain Jamie Benn I think I've seen in all of his seasons.
I was just missing some hands. I want to see some hands being thrown. Come on.
He was throwing some hands at the beginning of the season, and I'm pretty sure he got told, "Hey, you have to reel that in a little bit." But there were many times where he was backing up the young guys. If you went after Stankoven when he was on the ice with him, or you went after Johnson while he was on the ice with him, he was the first one in there getting in somebody's face.
Yeah,
I like that.
but Jamie can't
This
do it
was
all
this was this
himself.
season. I think this season, if you watched it, not only one of my favorite things was that point during oh good lord, where it had him, Johnston, and Stankoven all three on the bench talking. And to me, that is one of the most captain things that you can do as a captain is when you are on that bench and you've got your young guys around you and y'all are discussing strategy and what. And that to me, and for him to back these young guys up the way he did, I think he did a good job as captain this season. Last season I was really down on him after, especially the way he exited the playoffs the way he did. I questioned a lot of his decision, but this season he made a lot of smart decisions. As captain.
Let me ask you this too. Let's circle back to the season we were both kind of questioning him. We came to the conclusion that he was frustrated. Okay. And we saw him progress and take stuff into his own hands. What if he doesn't have to? Like, we saw this season the change. He didn't have to take everything into his own hands, and the team did better.
Yeah,
But, they got pushed around like somebody that should be arrested against Vegas that season. And Jamie just let it all boil up and boil over. And it's just like, if you had more people to do what Jamie does, and yeah, I get they all hit, but they need to hit harder. They wouldn't have ran out of gas if somebody was there to have their back.
yeah.
Jamie
Well, like I
ran.
said, this off season, and I understand our GM 2 years in a row, GM one of the best GMs in the league, the best GM. I want to see some moves this offseason. I really do. I want to see them do something because remember last offseason they really didn't do a lot, and we both kind of questioned that. It's like, not a lot happened. And everybody wanted them to focus, at least a little something on defense, and They focused nothing on defense last year. And I think that's part of why it came back to bite us in the ass. I mean, honest and truly, if something is broken, fix it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, we've had 2 seasons where we haven't focused anything on defense and we pretty much focused all offensively and either trying to be a little bit more of a balanced team or maybe a more offensive minded team. Well, that's great. But the problem being is you're taking away from the help that's needed, especially for your goaltender, and you you need to focus on somebody who's going to go out there and be able to clear our zone. And I think they need to focus a little bit on. We need to get a key defense, and I mean a high marquee key defense. Somebody that's going to come out there, take the reins, and really know do some damage defensively.
Can
Oh, and we also need to work on. Can we please work on our power play? I almost forgot about how horrible our power play was. I think we had one game where we had 4 or 5 power play opportunities and didn't get a goal one.
That was against Edmonton, if memory serves.
I believe you're right. And I mean, come on now. You cannot do that in this league. This is a league where when you get an opportunity, you have to capitalize on it. I don't know what the heck they can do. I really don't. I have no answer. So when I'm saying some of the stuff I'm saying, it's just observations on the outside. That's what they're getting paid millions of dollars. I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to figure this stuff out. You know, I'm just here giving my opinion, and they need to work on figuring out. I don't know if it's changing lineups. I don't know if it's bringing in certain players. I don't know. I don't know what the actual answer is going to be, but they really need to focus on their power play.
That involves getting rid of the current coach, which, by the way, if you look him up, I'm not going to give you his name on here, but if you look him up, just search his name and unhappy fan base and in those words on Google, you will see a ton of teams he worked for not very happy with him. So, I mean, as the saying goes, you are a reflection of your leadership.
Yeah,
If if you don't have the leader, are you going to be anything special?
no. And it just seemed to me like our power play was a basic power play team this season. No creativity, no aggression, no sense of urgency.
There was at least 30 games where I wondered if the Stars had any urgency at all.
Yeah.
Playoffs included. Mm.
Mm-mm.
Well, tell you what, though, it's June 25th as of this show, and July 1. July 1. Do you know what July 1 is?
No.
Uh, if things haven't changed, that marks the start of free agency. You're just days away from, no matter which way you slice that piece of cake, you're just days away from the start of free agency.
Well, let's hope the Stars do something this year.
Ugh, anything.
Yeah, because like I
Anything.
said, it's broken right now. They need to fix it. If they think they can stick with the same formula that they've been doing the last 2 seasons and expect to win the cup, it ain't gonna happen. You're gonna be in the same position. You know, we'll be the runners up pretty much, and
I
that's
know
about as far as we'll make it.
I know that we're nearing the end of this show, but I want to ask you something real quick. We'll even call this closing thoughts if you want. We went from Stanley Cup Finals to being beat up to petering out. When you look at that, running out of gas against Tampa Bay, to getting beat up by Vegas, to running out of gas right before even sniffing the Stanley Cup. What do you think about that? Is that a downgrade in seasons? Like, did we regress
Oh,
over
yes.
those?
Even though we might have won more games this season than we did last season, and we were actually in the President's Cup discussion at one point, um, yeah, I would say that this was more of a letdown than last season when we lost to the Golden Knights. Last season when we lost to the Golden Knights, it was because, in my opinion, and I'm sorry, there may be fans that are going to get mad at me for what I'm fixing to say. The Golden Knights were a better team, hands down, point blank. Do I think that the Oilers were a better team than the Stars this season? No, absolutely not. I think the Stars could have mopped the ice up with the Oilers if they really wanted to. But I think one of the reasons that we petered out, and I'm sorry I didn't think about it earlier in the show, and I know I just brought it up, was our power play. You cannot be given those opportunities and not come out with anything. That's demoralizing. That right there will demoralize the team faster than anything that you can think of. When you have a man advantage, and if I'm not mistaken, on a couple of those power plays, did the Oilers not score shorthanded goals on those? I believe they did. If
Yeah,
we need to go back and research, I know for a fact they scored two back to back shorthanded goals in one game that I was watching, and I turned it off. I couldn't stomach it anymore. It made me sick. So
that was
when
that
you're
was
losing, when you're losing shorthanded goals and you're not able to go and you're a man up, that is demoralizing to a team. So if you really want to know what probably caused them to peter out, right there, when you have opportunities like that and you cannot follow through and you cannot capitalize on that, there's no way you're going to win a game or a series.
see that's heart and killer instinct when your back's against the wall.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And you can say, "Oh, DeBoer is undefeated in Game Sevens." Even that's going to end some point.
Oh yeah. And
And
who wants to keep going to a game seven? Not me.
no, I don't. I
I'm
want to see.
tired of that.
Yeah,
I want us to go out there and dominate and win these things in 5 or 6 games,
I mean,
preferably four. But I know in the league we're in, it's difficult to do that these days. Ask Florida; they'll tell you.
this is why I love having you as the host because it was like you were in my head just then. Because I was gonna go on a tangent about that 4 game thing, like please give us a sweep, and then take it to Florida. Oh man, I freaking love you. That was just amazing, impeccable. Yeah, I don't think Dallas even has the talent to sweep a series. I will say that.
No,
And
no, 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 no. They do have the talent. That's the thing that is upsetting is they do have the talent. They just don't have the talent that's willing to play to their own level. Is the problem,
that's coaching and leadership.
right? You hit the nail on the head right there. Honest and truly, if I were Coach DeBoer, you're the head coach. But if you don't have a good support system behind you, you know, it's just like if you look at Coach Belichick and all the success he had. Well, he wouldn't have had that success if he didn't have a coaching staff the way he did, and some of the key players in key positions that he had. Now, the one thing that you can say what you want against Coach Belichick, the New England Patriots of the last almost 20 years, but look at how many times they had no real weapons on offense other than Brady and a good offensive line. How many times it's like they had a who the heck are they as far as wide receivers? But yet
Yeah,
Brady was able to make every who the heck is that wide receiver look like $1 million.
I'll throw one out just for good measure. Danny Amendola, who was a Dallas Cowboys reject.
Yeah.
Dallas cast him away. He ended up going to New England. If I remember correctly, he's got a ring.
Oh yeah, yeah. He got a ring in New England.
So, I mean, and you can't blame one player on that either. Everything has to mix right too, and everything mixes right. I'll say because of coaching.
Yeah.
Green Bay.
It starts from the top.
It
I
does.
mean, and I know I'm a Houston Texans fan, and what I'm fixing to say, there's some, whatever. But honest and truly, if you look at Houston 5 years ago versus the Houston Texans now, it is like day and night. And I have been a fan, win or lose, and I made it through the whole O'Brien debacle. I made it through when they made him GM, and I was one of the first ones to say that is the worst decisions that you guys have ever made. And sure enough, as soon as I said that, what does he do? Trades our number one wide receiver, Hopkins, and didn't get Jackety Crud for him. How do you do that? But you look at then and all the bad decisions that were being made and how cruddy and how hard it was being a Texans fan back then to where they are now. And what's changed it? Well, number one, we got a GM that is a winning GM that wants to win, not just, you know, put his personal feelings in every move he makes. No, not, and he'll be the first to tell you, you know, nothing is personal. Every move that I make is strategic. Then you have a head coach, like the head coach that we've got. It starts from the top and it just trickles down. And you've got a head coach that wants to win. That head coach wants to win to a coaching staff that wants to win. The coaching staff to players that want to win. To a rookie quarterback that comes in and lights the league on fire because that's all he knows how to do is win. He doesn't, he takes losses personal. I want a quarterback that's going to take a loss as personal. I want that quarterback that looks defeated on the sideline when they're losing. I don't want that quarterback that, yay, we lost. I'm going to Cancun, Mexico with my girlfriend. And I don't
Oh,
want to take nothing against that quarterback. And I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. But he was never going to win a Super Bowl. He was never going to go beyond where they were going. Why? Because he never took anything personal. It wasn't personal to him.
I know.
He even said it in an interview. His lifelong goal was to be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. He had achieved that, and that was it.
Mm,
I don't want a quarterback that says my lifelong goal was to be a quarterback in the NFL. No, I want a quarterback that says my lifelong goal is to win a championship. I want to
mm.
be a champion. So, we need more players on the stars that my lifelong goal is to hoist that cup. Not my lifelong goal is to make it to the NHL and I'm just happy that I'm here. One of the worst things I think I've ever heard a player say is, I'm just happy to be playing. No, sir. No, sir. Get off my field. Go take that happy horse shit somewhere else. I'm sorry, don't make me laugh, but take that somewhere else because and I don't. Oh, only a handful of people get the opportunity that we get. Yeah, okay, that's great. But as a fan base, I want you to go out there and say, no, I want to win a championship. I didn't come to this league to make it where I'm at. I came to this league because I want to get that trophy. I want to hoist that cup above my head.
Hmm.
That's the mentality they need to get. And like you said, it starts from the top and trickles down. And if I were Coach DeBoer, I would start really questioning some of the coaching staff that I have and trying to find pieces that are going to fit better than what you have right now, especially in the power play coaching.
Well, here's the thing to piggyback off what you said and add a little bit of credibility and solidify it and whatever else you want to say. Pete DeBoer took San Jose and even Vegas twice, I believe, each. Is it something like that? In the first couple of years, they reached the Western Conference or whatever finals in his first couple times coaching each team. They did that here twice.
Yep.
And yet they're still golfing by, well, May, and you can say, oh, short summer, blah, blah, blah. But the one pattern that I noticed here is the coaching he had in each of those teams that he took to the conference finals was also brought here. How many times did they win a cup with that staff?
He has.
Zero.
He needs to change something up.
Yeah.
That experiment has shown it's not working.
Yeah. Yep. That's the one. And I know you gotta go.
Yeah, I got schoolwork I'm fixing to get started on
So
again.
thank you so much for taking the time though. And for the next time we do a show together, I want to plant this thought in your head. And well, actually, let's do this. Do you like the free agency moves? That's going to be a question I want you to answer. And do you think they'll mix with the coaching? On that
Oh,
note,
free agency moves we make.
dude, I don't think anything will mix with this one coach. I think he needs to go, and I don't know if it's the friendship thing or what that's keeping him here. We'll discuss that off here. So, but yeah, I really want to get that off my chest.
I,
Anyways, um, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope I can get you on the show again maybe next week so we can talk about free agency, if not some other time soon,
oh yeah,
because you got rookie camp coming up. We got stuff we can talk about, and it's going to be fun.
yes sir.
Thanks, man. I love you to death. Any parting words?
Just let's figure out this free agency thing, and let's maybe Coach DeBoer figure out your coaching staff a little better. But go Stars.
Go Stars. And hey, I actually do like DeBoer and Nil. I'm happy with them.
Yeah,
All right, Stars fans, we're out of here. Go Stars. Thanks for listening.
Stars.